When you go to the polls in this country as a parent, you should have more power. You should have more of an ability to speak your voice in our democratic republic than people who don't have kids. Let's face the consequences and the reality. If you don't have as much of an investment in the future of this country, maybe you shouldn't get nearly the same voice. Now, people will say, and I'm sure the Atlantic and the Washington Post and all the usual suspects will criticize me about this in the coming days. Well, doesn't this mean that non-parents don't have as much of a voice as parents? Doesn't this mean that parents get a bigger say in how our democracy functions? Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so that's JD Vance, who is, at least as of us recording this right now, gonna be Trump's VP pick. We'll see if that's true in a day or a week or so, because he's terrible at it. He's not only a reprehensible little troglodyte with absolutely zero, maybe negative charisma, but he also has a history that is littered with minds like this. And the reason we wanted to play that video for you is right now, literally 30 minutes before we went live, JD Vance came out and defended his cat lady's comment by saying, oh, I was just being sarcastic. First of all, no, you weren't, you little cowardly worm, that you won't stand by the stupid things that you said now that you're being criticized. But you can see in videos like that, oh no, this isn't sarcasm. He loves that he's saying it. He's going to these little closed door meetings with a bunch of Republican men just like him and fantasizing about taking women's rights away. And then he's conjuring these scenarios where, oh, the Washington Post is gonna be like, but isn't that unfair? And I'll be like, yes, it is. Give me your praise, give me your applause. Well, you wanted the applause. Wasn't sarcasm. You thought it was an applause line. You thought you were hot S at that point. Now you just look like a pile of S, actually, and that's why you're running from these comments. And we're gonna get to not just my criticism and Waz's criticism of his weird crusade he's been on against women, apparently throughout his adult life, but we have a ton of conservative women that are tearing him new ones, like he tears into couch cushions. So we're gonna get to that in just a sec. But Waz, what do you make of the cat lady stuff?
A storm is tearing up the digital media industry. Only our audience can save us in these difficult times. Help us reach our goal of 100,000 new members at tyt.com/team.
It's the bottom of the barrel. And I feel like he's, basically Midwest DeSantis, in the sense that all of this stuff plays in certain online circles, right? I think a lot of times these guys say this type of crazy stuff and they're surprised by the size of their constituency online, on forums, on certain social media platforms, in certain corners. And they mistake that to mean that there's a wider acceptance for this crazy stuff that they go with, when in reality, a normie suburban voter is going to be repulsed by this. Let's just take it to its furthest, logical endpoint. What about seniors whose kids are basically 50-year-olds now? They don't have an investment in the country, so they shouldn't be able to have a vote. They shouldn't have a voice. Like this exclusionary idea, it's not as smart as he thinks it is. But again, if you're constructing your politics via meme, okay, where like on a meme it'd be like, it's funny how people with no kids want to have a say in the future. And you put a meme up and you get a bunch of likes and shares and people think it's brilliant. That's not how real life actually works. That's not how you actually communicate to a wider public. And this stuff is going to be, it's not going to win. It's going to be a failing mission for these guys if they think they're gonna take this extremely online posture to the general public. People are gonna be like, yo, this guy is a lunatic.
Yeah, it's like you have, as the presidential nominee, a guy who has spent literally decades harassing and apparently, according to courts, raping women. And then you have a guy who might be worse on the topic of women. That is not a great ticket, I don't think, anyway. And apparently a lot of conservative women are coming around to the same opinion. Corey Whalen was the communications director for former Michigan Representative Justin Amash, a Republican, who posted on Twitter, I'm a right-leaning woman who agrees with almost nothing the Biden-Harris administration has done, But the primal hatred and disgust Vance stokes in me transcends politics. That's great. Meghan McCain, former host of The View, obviously said, one of my best friends did rounds and rounds of unsuccessful IVF wanting to have a child. It's still painful to talk about. This childless woman comment by JD Vance has done so many waves with so many different friends of mine for its insensitivity and cruelty to women. Obviously, we talked about Jennifer Aniston saying, Mr. Vance, I pray that your daughter is fortunate enough to bear children of her own one day. I hope she will not need to turn to IVF as a second option because you're trying to take that away from her too. Now even Tommy Lauren came out and said, I like JD Vance. We'll see how long that lasts, but I'm not sure the calculation as VP pick checks out. Going to be 3 months of replaying his past comments. It's not going to be easy to get around some of these. Sorry, just the truth. I love that she has to protect her reputation as a right-wing grifter, she has to apologize for pointing out that this guy is gross and turns off women. He clearly makes her feel sick, but she can't just freely admit that. She has to put caveats on it. And finally, I'll just say Kesha put out a statement just saying, F that man, which I think is a great way to summarize it. Yeah, he's terrible. He's gonna turn off women who probably already for the most part weren't big fans of Donald Trump. It's such a weird choice to have JD Vance. And you know what I love about it? Not only that Donald Trump made the bad choice, but that apparently Tucker Carlson was the main advocate for JD Vance. And I love that he might have helped to doom Donald Trump. And honestly, if I was a conspiracist, I would say maybe it was on purpose. Because remember, Tucker Carlson secretly in private hates Donald Trump's guts. So maybe he did it on purpose. Any final thoughts?
Yeah, I just think Trump thought that he was kicking the Dems' butts in the polls and he could run up the score and he didn't have to be very calculating about his VP pick. And people like Elon Musk, people like the aforementioned Tucker Carlson were in his ear. And I think the thinking for people at home who are wondering like, why would he pick this guy? I think their thinking is that Vance will actually help come up with ideas on ways to legislate. Right? Because if people remember when Donald Trump was the president, he had no interest in governing. He passed their tax cut and then moved on with his life. He had no interest on pushing forward a legislative sort of, platform, right? And so I think the idea was that JD Vance would bring some legislative, heft to what Donald Trump's operation would be in the White House. And his past foibles wouldn't matter because Trump was so far ahead. Only man, like these comments, this manner of speaking about people, it plays to a group of people who don't ever share these opinions with like actual people like in the real world. They're only ever doing this online behind anonymous social media accounts. And so the idea that you're gonna take this stuff for a walk in public and think that like it's going to work, it's mind blowing.
Yeah. If there are any young conservative men watching, I'll just say, I know there's been a lot of discussion in your circles about like why it's become so difficult to date and to have sex and stuff. I would just say acting like that doesn't help. It turns off women. I don't know how much more evidence you need. Even Republican women who are supposed to just swallow down the disgust they feel for the guys they have to spend time with have to let it out when it's this gross. So just my advice, don't be a JD Vance. Thanks for watching our video. Did you know that you can support our show by becoming a subscriber? Just click the subscribe button and also ring the bell so that you get notifications when we're live or when we post new content.